My name is Daniel Wynn, and by day I invest in sports cards, but by night I make videos about investing in sports cards. I am the great curator. Join me on my journey to break even in the hobby that we all love.
Hello everyone, I'm the Great Curator and welcome to my channel. If this is the first time that you guys are visiting, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. The reason I make these videos is for education. This is my fun and creative way to kind of give back to the community by sharing my opinions, my perspective, and my insight with you guys on these topics and issues that I'm discussing. It's my sincere hope that you guys will find value in these videos and continue to support this channel. This is also a way for me to kind of use the YouTube platform to spread my message of positivity and civility within the hobby. I believe that if we come together as a community and set a very high standard of conduct and civility that we hold each other accountable to, we will weed out all the bad actors that are currently trying to ruin our hobby, and we will be better off for it. We can be gentlemen investors, we can be lady investors, and we can do it very easily. All we have to do is just be kind, nice, respectful, and honest to each other. Super easy, guys. We should be doing these things anyways, but if we do it and we hold each other accountable to these standards, I believe that our community will be stronger, the hobby will grow, and the values of our cards will rise. So hopefully you guys will support this message. This is my mission statement. This is why I make these videos. Please support me. You can do that by subscribing, sharing, liking these videos, and hopefully you guys will enjoy. Thank you. All right, guys, welcome back. You asked for it, so this is part 2 of my review of Josh Luber's paper, Trading Cards Are Cool Again, okay? If you didn't watch the first video, I'm not gonna go over any of the points again, just go back and watch that, but basically, I talk about the first half of his paper where he explains to us what causes a run-up in the card prices. He explains to us what happened in Q2 of this year where card prices went up to all-time highs and why it went to the correction and subsequent crash, and signs to show that, you know, the hobby is healthy in his eyes. 2 big events that have happened this past year. Okay, so that's what he talked about in the first part of his paper. Now we're going to talk about the last section of his paper, which I think is probably the most important. This is how we should be looking at the overall market to determine what the health of the market is, and whose responsibility it is to take the hobby to the next level and what they should be doing to get there, okay? All right, so let's just get right into it. Basically, what I'm seeing right now, and a reason why I wanted to make this paper, is that a lot of people are focused on the prices of cards, and that's what they're using to determine whether the market is healthy and doing well or whether it's falling and doing poorly, okay? So for example, like when prices are high on cards, everybody's happy. You know, the market must be doing really well and healthy. When prices are falling and they're low, people are saying the sky is falling, the market is crashing, we should all get out of cards, and people are really negative, okay? So we are solely focused on price. But in his paper, Josh says that that is only one element of what makes the overall or gives us the overall picture of what the market is doing or how healthy the market is. It's only one element, and it's actually the way that we should actually look at it is in terms of 3 different categories to determine how healthy the market is, okay? So price is only one of them. That's a singular way of looking at the market, but really there should be three things that we need to be paying attention to, okay? Number 1 is the price, obviously. Number 2 is what he calls the people category, the piece of the pie of the market, okay? How many people are currently in the market and what the demand is. And then number 3 is what the companies are doing, okay, to support the infrastructure and support that demand. And he kind of breaks it down in terms of using a sports analogy to look at it, okay? He uses a baseball analogy in terms of innings and where these 3 categories are in the innings of the game to show you where they are in the life cycle of the market. So let me explain, okay? We'll use prices, for example, okay? So prices will be the first thing that we cover here. In terms of prices, in the span of a 9-inning game, 1 being just at the beginning and 9 being at a fully mature market, he says that prices are in the 5th or 6th inning. 5th or 6th inning of the 9-inning game, okay? Meaning that, you know, let's just go back to the 80s, 90s, right? That's when really trading cards started to pick up. That would be like the first or second inning. Then 2000s, 2010s, and all the way up until before 2020, where there was like very little but steady growth up. The prices of cards were probably in the third or fourth inning of the game. Then in 2020, when there's a huge spike, okay, and then the subsequent correction and crash in 2021, that's when the prices went to the fifth and sixth inning, okay? And there's still room for cards to grow. Cards are not fully mature in terms of their prices. That's what he means by that. Okay, so that's the price section. We're in the fifth or sixth inning of the price section. The second part is the people section, okay? In terms of this, what he's talking about are how many people are in the hobby, which is what is driving the demand, which affects the prices of cards. And in terms of people, we are in the third or fourth inning is what he's saying. So again, going back to prior to 2020, right? Steady growth in the hobby, but really it's still a very niche thing that people are collecting. So that's probably like in the second inning of the game. And then 2020, all these people jump into the hobby, prices skyrocket, the hobby grows, 2-3x of what it was the year prior. That's when we go into the third or fourth inning, and that's where we are right now. But even though we're like probably 4 or 5x of what we were a couple years ago, in the overall grand scheme of the population and how many people could be involved, how many sports fans, how many investors, how many collectors are out there, we are still just in the beginning stages of getting into the middle of the game. There is still a lot of people that can jump into the card market to make it grow to that fifth, sixth, seventh inning and all the way to the mature market of what he sees we can be at, okay? So there is still a lot of population that can jump into the hobby and cause the hobby to continue to grow. So in that regard, we are only in the third or fourth inning, okay? And what is really gonna drive that type of demand to come into the hobby, that type of growth, is how cards are viewed in our culture. Okay, are cards going to be cool, where people are going to want to collect cards the same way that people listen to music, the same way people collect sneakers, the same way that people, are into, watching like other things like reality TV shows. Once trading cards or collecting cards becomes ingrained in our culture, then it is mainstream. Right now it is not, but there are signs to show that it is going that way. Signs being celebrities that are becoming, major collectors like Steve Aoki, athletes that are collecting or investing in companies like Kevin Durant, and when they start making TV shows, lots of content creators out there creating content, but when they start to make major TV shows like Ken Golden, when he's doing that, I don't know if it's like a documentary or drama or something, but whatever Ken Golden is doing, and that's going to be on Netflix, that's really gonna bring a lot of eyes to the hobby, bring a lot of people to the hobby, and that is what's gonna drive demand. Also, when Fanatics takes over, whenever that is, and they start pumping in money into marketing trading cards or sports cards, and you start seeing cards at like stores all over the place, in stadiums and arenas and all that stuff, that's gonna bring in a whole new crop of people to the hobby, and that's gonna grow the people section of the market, okay? So there's still a lot of room to grow. And then finally, the last section, which is probably the most important section, is the company section of the pie that we should be looking at, okay? Companies, these are the manufacturers, these are the grading companies, these are the supply companies, these are the service companies. Every business that makes money from the card market, they are in this section, okay? And in this regard, he says that companies are still only in the second or third inning of this life cycle, meaning that up until 2020, right, there were only just a handful of companies that were involved in this market. But in 2020 and 2021, there were all these startups that came in, all these pop-up grading companies, all these supply companies, all these service companies, right? Everybody jumped into the card market to start building out the infrastructure and provide goods and services to make money off of it. And that is really causing a lot of innovation and growth within the hobby, the infrastructure of the hobby, okay? But in that regard, we're still only in the second or third inning, he says, and there's still so much room for the companies to grow that they're not even in the middle of the game yet, okay? And really, companies are what drive this whole thing. Companies pay for marketing, they pay for innovation of products. That brings in more people. More people come in, that drives up demand, and that affects the prices of cars, which makes them go up. So the way that he's describing this overall picture right now is that basically you have the companies which cannot keep up with the demand of people. The demand of people cannot keep up with the prices, and prices go high. That's the way that it is right now. Prices are towards the end of the game. Where it should be, the way I interpret his paper, is that really it should be the reverse of that, okay? Companies should be towards the end of the game where they're almost fully mature. They built out the infrastructure, and they're supporting the marketing of the hobby. They're doing that drives people, okay? So people should be in the middle section. That drives people into the hobby. That keeps things growing. More people, more activity, more demand. As demand goes up, the prices, which should be towards the end, the prices should be going up. So that's kind of like where we want to be, but it's the exact opposite right now, okay? Which is not a bad thing. That's just how it is right now. So he says that once these three sections, okay, price, people, and companies, even though they're in different sections of the inning of the game right now, they're in different innings. Once they start to get closer and they start to align in the same inning, so let's just say they all align in like the 8th or 9th inning of the game, and the market is fully mature, that's when you'll see a huge boom, just like we saw in 2020, right? That's when there'll be a big boom. That's when everything will be good, everybody will be happy, and the market will be very healthy, okay? Whether that happens next year, this year, whatever, we don't know, but when that happens, be ready, because that's going to cause a huge bull market. That's his words. He describes it that way, okay? So that is how we should be viewing the market, not just in a singular view in terms of the price, but in those three sections. And then when you look at those three sections and what each of those sections is doing, that's how you can determine where the market is. So in my opinion, the way I look at it right now, prices are falling, okay? But the demand of people is still there, okay? We talked about this in the last video where we said that the overall attendance at the National was like four or five times greater than it was before, okay? The amount of activity in the hobby, card shows every weekend. So the people section is very healthy right now. The third section, companies are investing a lot of money to build out new products, to build out services, to build out infrastructure. Companies like PSA are scaling up their business really big. Big companies like Fanatics are buying up the licenses and investing a lot into the hobby. New companies are popping up every day to provide services that will make the experience of collecting cards, buying, selling, trading more streamlined and less friction in it. So the companies are in terms of activity and investment is very healthy too. So the way I look at it right now, I think the market is healthy based off of those three elements. If I was just to look at it based off of price, yeah, I would say the market is going down and things are bad. But when you look at the two other elements and you put them together, it's really an overall positive outlook, okay? Now let's talk about the last section here, where he talks about whose responsibility it is to really drive this market and what they can do, okay? And basically he makes it very simple. The people who have the most responsibilities in driving the market here is really the manufacturers of the product, the card manufacturers. So right now that's going to be Panini, that's going to be Topps, and in the future that will be Fanatics, okay? And the way the thing that they have to understand, okay, if all the responsibility is falling on the manufacturers, what they need to understand is how to manage the supply versus the demand dynamics, okay? We talked about this in the last video. When supply is high and demand cannot support the supply, prices are going down, the market is not going to do well, okay, in terms of price. When demand is high, okay, and supply can be managed to support that demand, but it doesn't overtake it, that's when the market is good. And right now, that is the most tricky problem that the manufacturers are trying to figure out and trying to answer. And he explains it in this way, okay? Right now, the manufacturers are solely concerned on the primary cost of the products, the cards, right? The primary cost being the retail cost. They make the cards, they get it out to the distributor, they make their money, and then that's it. They wash their hands of it. They're done, right? But he's saying, Josh is saying that the manufacturers have to also be aware and equally concerned about the secondary market value of the product. Meaning that once they sell it to the distributors and then once it goes out to the public, they have to also care about what the resale is of that product, okay? Because right now they sell it and it gets marked up to the secondary market to once it goes out to the distributors and they allocate it to their accounts. The secondary markup those costs is too high, basically, okay? And that's what's causing a lot of friction in the hobby right now because of that secondary market value. And the manufacturers, they don't, they never talk about it, so I don't know if they care about it or not, but that is something that he says that the manufacturers have to be concerned about, because if the value of those cards flies up, that's what they call inflation. Okay, the prices of the cards will inflate, and it will make the return on investment on those products impossible to make up for the cost. Okay, the return on investment will be much less than the cost of the product, which will make the products less valuable overall, and not be and negatively affect the market. He calls this the paradox of supply. Okay, meaning right now there's a lot of demand on the hobby, so you think the obvious answer would be just to print more cards, but we can't do that, because if we print more cards, then we have the junk wax era again. There has to be the inventory, the print run of these cards have to be managed in a way where they don't become worthless. They still hold their value once they go out there. Okay, and he calls this the paradox of supply. How can the manufacturers manage this paradox of supply? And there's 3 ways to do it, okay? And one of them doesn't even work. So let's just get that one out of the way. Printing more cards, that doesn't work. We know that. That happened in the 90s, that killed the hobby. So that first answer, that first solution, we gotta throw that out. So really there's only 2 solutions after that, what the manufacturers are doing right now. The second solution is to print more sets of cards. So don't print the same cards, but print multiple sets so that you have a lot of supply out there of different products, a variety of products, and that will, hopefully support the demand, but keep all the cards valuable, because they'll be limited in their print runs. And that's what the companies are doing right now, but they've already hit their max capacity in terms of how many sets they can produce. Essentially, the way he breaks it down in his paper is that the companies are basically releasing a new set of cards every week. Okay, they have like 50 sets of cards in every sport that they're releasing every week, and they can't really release any more than that. They've hit their max capacity with that. There's just too much variety out there, so they can't really print any more different sets, right? So the next thing that they do is they have to print chase cards within the sets to get people to buy those products and create demand for that, and hopefully create value by adding these artificial gimmicks to the chase cards. So these are the parallels. These are the color parallels we're seeing. The animal prints, the numbered cards. And although these cards hold more value, again, I think that everybody can agree that they've hit the max capacity of what they can do with the chase cards. They're just printing every color in the rainbow, every animal print available, every different type of gimmick they can find. They've done it to that point, right? So now what do they do to still meet that demand, okay, but still have these cards to hold value? Because now they're getting to the point where there's just, even though they're not overprinting one individual cards, the same individual cards, they're overprinting too much product, and there's just not enough demand to meet that. So what can they do to fix this problem going forward? He doesn't really give a concrete answer, a specific answer to this. He doesn't say what Fanatics is planning to do, but he gives an idea of how they should approach it. You have to understand what the consumer wants. The consumer does not want more cards to be printed, right? When they have a card that comes out and everybody wants it and everybody goes after it, and the people that don't get it, the first thing they do is they complain that they don't get it, right? And you think that the idea would be just to print more of this card that they want so that they can get it. But that's not what they want. They don't want more cards to be printed. What they want is to be one of the lucky people to get that card, okay? Because that card is cool, it holds value, it's limited. They want that, right? So that is what needs to be focused on, not providing more supply for people to get all the cards that they want. Because if cards were so easily accessible and you could get any cards you want, you wouldn't want any of them because they hold no value. Value, is what drives the card market, is what he's saying. So you have to find a way to release the products, create products, release the products, and market it in a way where people think that the card is cool. Basically, that's what it is. And this goes back to the second part, or what we talked about earlier, in terms of cards have to be ingrained in our culture to the point where they're super cool and everybody wants them. And when you do that, if you can release it in a way where you don't overprint, okay, so you don't have cards just sitting around, you have it in terms of a limited supply, that is what will help grow the brand of the cards and create long-term demand. And that's basically it, guys. Basically, you have the manufacturers have to manage the supply where they make the cards cool enough to make people want these cards, but don't overprint it or oversaturate the market with too much variety where people don't think the cards are cool anymore. Okay, that's basically the path that they have to take. They haven't necessarily figured it out yet, but I think they're working on it. But that's really what the manufacturers have to do to keep the market going. Okay, guys. So that's pretty much it. And that's where he ends his paper. But overall, he's saying that basically cards right now, they are cool again. People want to collect them. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get the hobby to be mainstream. It's not mainstream yet. It's still somewhat niche, but it's getting there. And he's hoping that he can be, one of the driving forces for that. Okay, guys. So that's pretty much it. That's my take on Josh Luber's paper. Again, if you guys haven't read it, you should read this. It's definitely very interesting, and it definitely will give you a lot of insight into understanding how the hobby works and where the hobby's going. I highly recommend it for anybody. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. Let me know if you guys agree in terms of how we should be viewing the overall market in those three sections. Let me know if you guys agree that the manufacturers are the ones that will be driving the ship forward and what they can do to keep the cards valuable, but also keep the demand high and also keep everything, everything working correctly. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you guys got value out of this video, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I will see you next year.
I'm the great curator, the ultimate gentleman investor. Yeah, the great curator always stays till the gold digging hour. So watch out all you bad actors, 'cause you don't